When we speak of America's Gilded Age, roughly the period from about 1870 to the turn of the 19th century, the images that first come to mind are often of powerful industrialists, the Vanderbilts, the Astors, the Rockefellers, forging empires of steel, rail, and oil. But behind these titans of finance and industry, and often overshadowing them in the intricate dance of society, stood a formidable set of women. These were not merely wives or daughters, they were the matriarchs of Midas, the true architects of social power, meticulously crafting and rigidly maintaining the exclusive world of America's elite. While their husbands built fortunes, these women built dynasties, using balls, dinner parties, and carefully orchestrated marriages as their strategic battlegrounds. They set the standards of opulence, dictated the rules of engagement, and decided who belonged and who was forever excluded from the ranks of America's most exclusive society. Their lives were a glittering performance of status, of wealth, and influence, often conducted in mansions that rivaled European palaces. I am Dr. Amy Boyington, and today we step into their carefully curated world to understand how these upper class women not only lived in the Gilded Age, but truly ruled it, shaping its aspirations and defining its unparalleled extravagance. At the very pinnacle of Gilded Age society, social standing was paramount, more coveted even than the wealth itself. And it was women, not men, who held the keys to this exclusive kingdom. The rigid social hierarchy of New York, which dictated the elite of the nation, was presided over by a select few, none more powerful than Caroline Astor, known as the Mrs. Astor. As the matriarch of one of New York's oldest and most respected families, Mrs. Astor was the undisputed queen of what was famously known as the 400, the number of people who could fit into her ballroom, symbolizing the ultimate limit of acceptable society. Mrs. Astor's life was a testament to the power of tradition and unwavering social authority. Born in 1830, she married William Backhouse Astor Jr., a scion of the immensely wealthy Astor family. Throughout her long reign as the Empress of New York society, her days were a meticulous performance of her role. She resided in her opulent Fifth Avenue mansion, a bastion of old money taste and decorum. Here she held court, receiving callers during tightly scheduled hours, her drawing room acting as a filter for society's hopefuls. She was known for her strict adherence to every nuance of etiquette, believing that true social standing came from pedigree and proper behaviour, not merely from new money. Her annual ball was the highlight of the social calendar, an invitation to which was the ultimate mark of acceptance and exclusivity. For decades, no aspiring socialite could truly claim their place at the top without Mrs. Astor's explicit, often unspoken approval. But her reign was not unchallenged. The immense fortunes amassed by the new money families, such as the Vanderbilts and Golds, and others, often found themselves knocking on Mrs. Astor's carefully guarded doors. And leading the charge for the new wealth was the formidable Alva Vanderbilt. Born in Alabama in 1853, Alva came from a well-to-do Southern family, but her marriage in 1875 to William Kissam Vanderbilt, grandson of railroad magnate Cornelius Commodore Vanderbilt, plunged her into one of America's richest, yet socially unaccepted families. Alva was a woman of relentless ambition, sharp intellect, and she had a flair for the dramatic, deeply determined to secure her place and her family's place at the pinnacle of society. She understood that money alone was not enough. It had to be displayed with such force and originality that it could not be ignored. She was a woman not to be ignored. Alva's strategic masterstroke came in 1883 with her infamous or famous Vanderbilt Ball. Until this point, she had not been fully accepted into elite society, particularly, she had not been accepted by Mrs. Astor. But to celebrate the completion of her brand new French Gothic mansion on Fifth Avenue, a structure of unprecedented opulence, Alva planned a costume ball so spectacular, so grand, that even Mrs. Astor, who initially intended to snub the nouveau riche, was compelled to attend. This is a great story because initially Alva did not invite Mrs. Astor or her daughter Carrie, but Carrie desperately wanted to attend. However, decorum dictated that Carrie could not be invited to the ball unless Mrs. Astor formally called on Alva Vanderbilt first. So, through gritted teeth, Mrs. Astor finally agreed to meet Alva, and thus an invitation from Alva to the ball was duly sent. This public capitulation by Mrs. Astor marked a symbolic turning point, forcing old money to acknowledge the power of new money. From then on, Alva became a co-regent of society, using her immense resources to reshape social norms and challenge the established order. These women, through their rivalries and their rules, defined the very fabric of Gilded Age high society. One of the most defining phenomena orchestrated by Gilded Age matriarchs was the dollar princess, the strategic marriage of their wealthy American daughters to cash-strapped European aristocrats. It was a symbiotic exchange. Immense American fortunes were traded for ancient European titles, crumbling estates, and coveted social prestige. For the social climbing mothers of the Gilded Age, securing a duke or an earl for their daughter was the ultimate social triumph, elevating the entire family's standing. The sheer scale of this transatlantic exchange was astonishing. It's estimated that between 1870 and 1914, over 100 American heiresses married into British aristocracy alone, injecting hundreds of millions of dollars into struggling European estates. These marriages were often negotiated by the mothers with little regard for the young couple's personal affections. The most famous and perhaps the most poignant example was that of Consuelo Vanderbilt, daughter of the formidable Alva. Despite being deeply in love with an American, Consuelo was brutally forced by her mother into marriage with Charles Spencer Churchill, the ninth Duke of Marlborough, in 1895. Her dowry, an estimated $2.5 million, equivalent to over 90 million today, was used to restore the Duke's ancestral home, Blenheim Palace. Consuelo's life as a duchess was one of immense privilege, but profound unhappiness, a testament to the personal cost of such dynastic ambitions. She and her husband did not love one another, though they produced two sons. Though Consuelo adapted as best as she could to English society, she never ever really felt at home at Blenheim Palace. She and her husband, after 25 years of marriage, eventually divorced, a rare occurrence at the time. Another prominent dollar princess was Jennie Jerome, daughter of a New York financier, who married Lord Randolph Churchill in 1874, becoming the mother of Winston Churchill. Jennie was vibrant and intelligent, and she navigated the British aristocracy with flair, proving that American energy could invigorate old bloodlines. Similarly, Mary later, daughter of Chicago millionaire, married George Curzon, who would later become Viceroy of India, making her vicereine. These American heiresses brought not only wealth, but also a new energy, spirit, and often a more informal style to the staid European courts. They introduced American comforts, fashions, and even philanthropy. While many found happiness, others endured lonely, difficult lives, their fortunes used to prop up decaying aristocratic systems, with them getting nothing in return. Yet for their mothers back in America, these alliances represented the ultimate validation of their family's power, transcending the boundaries of the New World and conquering the Old. For the women who orchestrated this elite society, life was a continuous, meticulously planned performance of wealth and leisure. Their days were defined by a strict social calendar and the management of vast, complex households. These were not just homes, they were statements of power, requiring armies of servants, from butlers and footmen to cooks, maids, governesses, and coachmen, all overseen by the lady of the house. Directing such a domestic army was a skill in itself, demanding organisational prowess, a keen eye for detail, and rigid adherence to established protocols. Fashion was also an undeniable tool used by these women. It was an obsession and a powerful tool for displaying status. Gowns were intricate, elaborate, and changed multiple times a day, often costing sums that could support a working class family for a year. Diamonds, emeralds, and pearls dripped from their necks and wrists, signalling immense wealth. The silhouette was characterized by the hourglass figure, achieved through tightly laced corsets and voluminous skirts, evolving into the S-shaped bend towards the end of the era. These garments, though beautiful, often restricted movement, further underscoring the woman's ornamental role. Leading fashion designers in Paris dictated trends, such as the House of Worth. But American socialites, like the famously stylish Mrs. Cornelius Vanderbilt II, quickly adopted and showcased the latest designs. The social season was the rhythm of their lives. Winter saw them in New York attending countless balls, opera performances, and dinner parties. Spring brought trips to Europe, often for shopping or arranging more advantageous marriages. And summers are spent in exclusive resorts like Newport on Rhode Island, where magnificent cottages, which were actually sprawling mansions, hosted elaborate garden parties, yachting regattas, and exclusive balls. These summer retreats were not merely vacations, they were another crucial stage for social manoeuvring and display. For example, Alva Vanderbilt was instrumental in the building and design of her Newport home called Marble House. Built between 1888 and 1892, it was designed by Richard Morris Hunt in the Beaux Arts style. This mansion was incredibly opulent, and it was inspired by the Petit Trianon at the Palace of Versailles. Alva loved French architecture. It cost a staggering $11 million, equivalent to about $390 million today. And so you'd expect that the interiors were a beautiful triumph. The Grand Salon, for example, was designed to serve as a ballroom and a reception room. And it was designed in the Louis XIV style with green silk-cut velvet upholstery and draperies. And Alva's bedroom was equally beautiful, seen here, complete with a circular ceiling painting of Athena, painted in 1721 by Giovanni Antonio Pellegrini for a Venetian palace. She had it shipped to America. The purpose of this extraordinary opulence was clear: to demonstrate unquestionable wealth, secure social position, and validate the family's place at the pinnacle of society. Every gown, every piece of jewellery, every dinner party was a calculated move in the relentless game of social supremacy, orchestrated with precision by the matriarchs who understood that in the Gilded Age, appearance was everything. It must have been exhausting. Can you imagine never having a moment to yourself? While the primary sphere of influence for Gilded Age upper class women was the home and the ballroom, many found socially acceptable avenues to exert power and shape the world around them, primarily through philanthropy and cultural patronage. This wasn't merely charity, it was a blend of genuine social conscience, a sense of civic duty, and another crucial means of demonstrating status and moral standing. Wealthy women were instrumental in founding and funding hospitals, orphanages, and various benevolent societies. They organised charity balls, bazaars, and fundraising drives, often personally overseeing the operation of these institutions. This provided them with a legitimate public role, allowing them to exercise administrative skills and leadership qualities that were otherwise confined to their private lives. People like Mary Elizabeth Garrett of the Baltimore Garrett family, for instance, used her vast inherited wealth to champion higher education for women, making a transformative donation to establish the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, on the condition that women also be admitted on equal terms. Perhaps even more significantly, Gilded Age women became pivotal patrons of the arts. They commissioned works, funded opera houses, built libraries, and amassed vast collections that would form the foundation of many future public museums. Isabella Stewart Gardner, the eccentric and visionary Boston socialite, is a prime example. She not only collected art on a grand scale, but built a stunning Venetian Palace style museum in Boston to house her collection. opening it to the public after her death, a testament to her unique blend of social power and artistic passion. She curated every detail, from the placement of individual artworks to the lighting, creating a profoundly personal and immersive experience. These women also hosted renowned salons and intellectual gatherings in their home, bringing together artists, writers, politicians, and thinkers. While ostensibly social, these events often served as informal centres of cultural exchange and intellectual discourse, allowing women to engage with ideas and influence opinion in subtle yet powerful ways. For these elite women, philanthropy and patronage were not just about giving back. They were about leaving an indelible mark on the cultural and social landscape of the nation, solidifying once again their families' legacies for generations to come. Despite the outward glamour and immense social power, the personal lives of these upper-class Gilded Age women were often fraught with their own unique pressures and expectations. The demand for perfection in appearance, conduct, and social performance was relentless, leading to lives that could feel less like personal journeys and more like staged productions. For many women, their lives were not their own. They were dictated by the norms of the day, by their mothers, by their husbands, by their fathers. Many felt trapped in a sphere in which they could not escape. For many, their role as wives and mothers, though celebrated in the cult of domesticity, was primarily about providing heirs and maintaining the family's standing. Romantic love, while sometimes present, was often secondary to dynastic considerations, particularly in the grander marriages. The strictures of etiquette and the lack of private space within their vast households could lead to a sense of social confinement. Hidden behind opulent doors, personal struggles with loneliness, infidelity, or unfulfilled intellectual desires were not uncommon, yet rarely discussed in public. Physical ailments, often vaguely diagnosed as female complaints or nervous disorders, were widespread, reflecting the stresses of life lived under constant scrutiny and physical restriction. Yet within these constraints, some women did find outlets for personal fulfillment. Beyond philanthropy and patronage, they engaged in private pursuits like gardening, horse riding, collecting, or managing country estates. They have formed close bonds with other women within their own social circle, creating networks of support and understanding. These moments offered brief glimpses of their personality that hid beneath the glittering facade, hinting at the complex human beings behind the public personas. The women of the Gilded Age's upper class were a unique product of their time, a period of explosive wealth and profound social transformation. They were the visible face of America's newfound opulence, living lives of unparalleled luxury and setting the standards for high society. They wielded immense, though often informal power, controlling access, orchestrating marriages, and directing the flow of vast fortunes. The lives of these women, though outwardly gilded, were also filled with unique pressures and expectations. Yet their enduring legacy lies not just in their grand mansions or the titles they acquired for their daughters, but in their pivotal role as the arbiters and definers of an extraordinary era. They were the matriarchs of their age, and their reign, as dazzling as it was demanding, left an important mark on the very fabric of American society and its connection with the world. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe.